the Kenai. We're back at Night Drive today at the old house, recording another recovery story that we're really excited about. We have the world famous Tuba here today.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah, we're really excited to have Tuba here. We actually saw Tuba at Wednesday Market a couple weeks ago. These are going to air in the fall and winter. But next summer, if you're around Soldotna, Wednesday Market's always a great place. We have our Change for the Kenai booth there where you can come connect with us, get valuable information on community resources that we have available. But back to the original point, the reason we're here, the world famous Tuba. How's it going, man?
It's going incredible.
Awesome, man.
Glad to be here.
Nice. So we'll kind of dive right in here. Take us back. This is kind of a question we like to ask everybody, their first podcast that we do. Take us back to whether it be a month, 2 or 3, however long, when you kind of made that switch and realized that you needed help and that recovery was going to be that help that you needed. And how did you go about it?
Well, I had hurt my back a long time ago, and I got a lawsuit settlement, and it was like $75,000, and I spent $35,000 of it on booze in about 1 year. So towards the end there, I've known for a long time that I need to quit drinking, but I just didn't know how to stop, and I thought I was going to die that way. And at the point of the end of all that money, I was scrounging change just to buy a bottle of booze. So I remember I bought a gallon of whiskey that morning, and I drank it within 2.5 hours, almost all of it. And I remember dialing a phone and being like, I need help. I'm in a bad way. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking to myself, if I get pulled over, I'm going to take my seatbelt off. I'm going to drive off the end of a cliff. I'm not going to get a DUI. I'm not going to take me to jail. Right. So that's where I was at. And I was thinking that 3 or 4 months before I got help. That was going to be my exit. One of my really, really, really good friends who actually helped me in my recovery, he came home for lunch one morning. He came home in the morning, which he never does, like 10 o'clock. And I was sitting at the window trying to find a rehab or somebody to call for help. And he said, what do you need, Tuba? And I said, I need to go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And he put me in his truck, grabbed my CPAP machine, and he drove me to the hospital. And there I met a fabulous lady named Pat. Well, I was in there, who let me know, you have a problem. The doctor told me that my blood alcohol level was so high that he couldn't believe that I was talking. Couldn't believe I walked in there. He said, you should be flopping on the floor like a fish. Mm-hmm. You should have complete alcohol poisoning by now. So this person that was at the hospital, worked for the hospital, Pat, told me that they were going to keep me overnight and then get me in a facility the next morning. And so I begged her that if my friend would come pick me up, if they would let me go home for one night so I can get some clothes, get a shower, and so she did. And so my buddy Brad, who took me at 10 o'clock in the morning, came back and picked me up at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and drove me home. And, so I didn't drink that night and I didn't drink in the morning. I got in my truck and I went back to the intake office and they admitted me.
The Serenity House intake office?
The Serenity House intake office. And that night before, when I met that person in the hospital, that's where it began. I was shown nothing but kindness from that point till right now. Mm-hmm. Right now, I've got on the 10th, I'll have 20 months.
Awesome.
So
nice.
The community is all about helping people and in recovery, and all about not letting people fall. And if they do, they help them back up. Mm-hmm. So that's all began. Right. Was the hospital. I spent 13 days in detox, and then I went to Serenity House. And I spent another 53 days there. Mm-hmm. And while you're in the house, there's things that they have you do and goals that you have you try to meet. And my goals were to graduate from this program, which is the only thing I've ever graduated from in my life. Mm-hmm. My goals were to get a job, get my GED, and then after I was a year clean, apply for peer support so I can help other people. Which were pretty intense goals for somebody who's drank for 41 years, mm-hmm. partied for 41 years. That's kind of way out there, right. So that's about
once your brain starts to heal and you have some time on your hands now, though, it's kind of one of those things for the first time ever, you really have time and an able mind, and probably one of the first real times where it has to be a liberating feeling, I would imagine, to know now that you have the license and the capacity to be ambitious now. Like so to have those goals, I think like it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the truth is that it took a long time for me to. I had to stay in, like they say, you stay in the middle of the herd. You stay with people who are connected to the program. You trust in God, which I choose to call my higher power, but it is God who helped me through all this. And I had to. Uh, I don't like, they didn't brainwash me. Mm-hmm. They washed my brain. They cleaned my brain off because it was so corroded and just combobulated with so much bad stuff and bad thoughts and bad habits that I didn't know how to change them. I didn't know where I was going to go, how to help change them. So throughout this whole process, they taught me tools to use to keep myself sober, and I use those tools to this day, and I'm always learning new tools. Being connected to the community of recovery helps me stay sober. They always say, that helping another addict or an alcoholic, it helps you more than it helps them, and they don't know that, but it's true because you're getting out of yourself and you're helping other people, and you're doing what we're supposed to be doing. What I was supposed to be doing the whole time, I'm doing now. So and it's not like it's an easy road. It's not like there's not difficult times. There's always going to be difficult times. There's always going to be hard times. It's how they've taught me to learn how to deal with them now. And if you've been in any ways like drinking and partying and doing all these bad things for 41 years, and you get the opportunity to change, it's not like your mind, like my heart wanted to change. My mind didn't know how.
Yeah.
It was it's like just learning, like a baby learns to walk. I had to learn how to live life, all over again. When I got out of a Serenity House, I had a week before I had my friend take me on my visit. We got my truck, got all the alcohol all the empty bottles out of my truck, went and cleaned my truck, filled up with gas, and then I parked it right behind intake. So when I got out, I would have my truck to go to my appointments and stuff. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, I'm gonna get my truck, everything's gonna be great, woo, I'm free again. Well, I got in my truck and I cried. I went to my first psychiatrist appointment that morning and I cried the whole time. I went to my second one that morning and I cried the whole time. I didn't know how. I was like that little kid who first took his first drink or his first puff. I was a little kid in a huge world. I didn't know how to not feel scared, angry, sad, mad without having some kind of something in my body to alter my mind. Right. So the first day I got out, it was like a scared little kid, and it took a long time to be like, okay, I have freedom. I can do what I want. Don't make the wrong choices. Get to a meeting. Go to my classes. Right. So.
And what were some of those things that were like some of the most important things those in early recovery? Like if you're talking to somebody who's in early recovery now and kind of having some of these same feelings and fears and anxieties, I guess, more than fears really. What is some advice or like skills, or really, just like advice and tips that you might give somebody in early recovery now to stay connected and doing those kind of things?
Pray. Read the big book. Pray. Do what's suggested. Get a sponsor. Go to meetings. Go to your classes that you're supposed to go to for recovery. Learn a whole new routine. Instead of getting up and getting a bottle of booze or getting up and smoking or getting up and doing drugs, get up and pray. Get up and get to a meeting. Get up and get, go, I don't suggest for anybody to, unless that's what kind of person they are and they know they can do it. I didn't suggest in your first days out of recovery or out of a sober living home or something like that to get a job right away. They suggest 30 days, get all adjusted. And that's what my roommate did for me. He said the same thing that they say at the other places, you don't have to get a job for 30 days. Once you go to classes, once you go to meetings, he did the same thing. He said, I don't have to pay rent for 30 days. I want you to get really deep into your recovery, get to your classes, get to meetings, surround yourself with people who are sober. And that's what I did. For me being somebody who's very independent, I left home at such a young age and been a runaway. For me being somebody who's so independent and just did what I wanted to, I had to step out of my comfort zone. I had to start reaching out for people to help. I had to start going to meetings. I had to start talking at those meetings. And if everybody out there knows me, they know that I'm a talker. But really, for me to be put on the spot and stand up in a meeting or announce myself in a meeting, it's harder for me to talk because now I'm put on the spot. So you have to get out of your comfort zones and you have to start learning new and better habits. to change your way of life. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I really want to. Earlier, you said when you were first getting into recovery, actually, like entering the hospital, that people treated you nicely. And, that's kind of almost like an expectation I have that people are going to treat me nicely at like a hospital or, a care facility. But I think that really speaks to how you feel, though. It sounded like you didn't feel like they were going to treat you nicely. It sounded like I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like you felt like you were going to be rejected somehow.
Well, the thing is 20 years ago, I had a very bad meth problem too. Very bad. And I had been to 3 other rehabs in California. And in California, Pomona, San Bernardino, other places like that, they're really bad. They're not good rehabs. They're just there, they try, but they have so many diverse personalities, gangsters, just hardcore people. So it wasn't about rehab. It was more like trying to stay alive and not get beat up while you're in rehab kind of thing is what I remember. And I remember as soon as I got out of those rehabs, I went back out and used immediately.
Sounds like you were doing time in the rehab, not really rehabbing.
Yeah. And a lot of it was court ordered too. So I do believe that when you're court ordered, your mindset's not there to, you're just surviving. You don't want to go back to jail. You're trying to do whatever you can to make the judge happy and stuff. So it was a different kind of situation than it was here. Here, from the moment I went into the hospital, I was treated with compassion and love and kindness. And, to the next day when I got into the intake office, my brain was so fried at that point. I remember sitting there with this big, thick bunch of papers they wanted me to fill out and answer these things. I didn't get it. It was like just a bunch of jibbly up words on a piece of paper. And I remember crying, and I remember them helping me, and I remember them taking me to a room where I could fill it out so I'm not crying in front of those people. And, they were really very compassionate about, that I had a really bad problem, and so, even in detox, they checked on me every hour. They had medication for me so I didn't go into seizures. Opioids and alcohol, they say, are the hardest ones to come off of without having, especially somebody who's been doing it for so long, that I from the moment I was in the facility, I was treated with complete kindness and compassion. Not once was anybody frustrated at me. Even when I get frustrated myself, I was just, even the people that were in detox with me were kind and compassionate to me. And, I think that all of that kindness helped me realize I wanted a better way of life. Also,
was it confusing at first?
Well, my mind was confused.
Yeah,
everything in my brain was confused. It was about 3 weeks at the house that I was at, Serenity House, that I had a breakdown. I had a meltdown. I'm like 50 years old. I'm in a rehab again. I spent all my money. Everybody's rock bottom is different.
Yeah.
I still had my family, but I did a lot of damage, and I still had my truck, and I still had a place to live. But my soul, my spirit, my being was beyond repair. I thought. It was just a bottle of alcohol. And that's all I was. So it was a really hard first couple months.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is what I could say.
What do you feel like helped you the most in those really crucial first months? What kept you there? I mean, when you had that breakdown, I imagine you're looking in the mirror and saying, who am I? Like, what do I want to be? Like, how do you get through that?
No, I had a breakdown with a really incredible counselor, and, she gave me some tough love. And, every one of the counselors at Serenity House were just so incredible. They never let me put myself down. I'm a cutter and a burner, and I've been that way for forever. And, one of the counselors there told me that if you have an urge to hurt yourself, you need to come to me. And I remember getting ready. I remember getting a pen. I remember sharpening the edges. I remember going to sit in the closet by myself, and that's my release. I don't have alcohol. I'll cut and burn myself. And I was just about ready to cut myself. And I remembered her words. If you're going to do that, you need to come and tell me. And I did. I went down and I told her. And she was not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going to do that. She was more coddling. She let me know that I was a good person and I didn't need to hurt myself anymore. And there was a different way to change my life.
How did you deal with that vulnerability? Because I imagine that was a different experience.
I had to learn how to be vulnerable. I've always been a crazy guy all of my life. So, for even part of what I believe God put me in there for was to teach me vulnerability. You know, my body is really, really beat up. You know, I'm not that old. You know, but my body is really beat up. And came a point in time at the house that I couldn't, if I laid down for meditation or if I got on the couch, I would really have a hard time getting up. And a lot of the other clients in the house would help me up. They'd see me trying to get up. They'd be like, hey, let me help you up, Tuba. And to this day, people still help me up off the couches because, you know, it hurts more to try to get up by myself. And, you know, being the way that I am, I want to do it myself. I don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
I think that independence gets so deeply ingrained because of some of those experiences you've had that even now, you know, 20 months sober, and this is the only reason I'm really saying this and bringing this up is for those people in early recovery who are like, man, like I kind of feel like I've been doing this a while, even the first like 2-3 years, I kind of feel like I've been doing this a while, and like I still have troubles with these things at times. Like, man, you spent a lot more time learning to be independent and surviving, and you have been having a support system which allows you to be like vulnerable and cooperative like with other people. You know, it's like giving yourself that space and patience to really develop some of those skills and practice like some of that vulnerability, trusting people again, like learning some of those skills that like people with loving, stable, like engaging homes like get when they're children. You know, like some people aren't that lucky, man. Like they don't get that. You know, then you're forced to be independent from 11, 12 years old until you're 49, you know, or however old. Like that's be patient with yourself, love on yourself. Like you can still get it. You know, it's not over now. Like if anything, it's just starting.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and that's how I feel too. I came from a loving, nurturing family, a great family, great home, great parents, great aunts and uncles. I just didn't know how to handle the death of my father,
Right.
And that's what took me down in a spiral. And I didn't want to ask for help, and I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say that's reading out of a book. I didn't want to hear from some kind of psychiatrist that said, "Oh yeah, a lot of people's dads died," or you know, I'd ask them, "Do you drink? Do you do drugs? Do you know?" And they would say no, but I know a lot of people have problems. I didn't want to hear from that either. You know, I was very closed-minded. You know, so I had to learn.
You were also 12.
I was also 12, yeah, and you know. There was no explanation anybody was going to give me that was going to make me not want to die.
Right.
You know, so for, 41 years, all I wanted to do was die. I didn't want to be here anymore. You know, and I think that's why I drank and abused my body and did dangerous jobs and did dangerous things because I just didn't want to be here anymore. You know, I used to say to God, "Geez, just let me die." You know, and now I wake up every morning and saying, thank you for letting me live. You know, I live an incredible life now. You know, even only 20 months into it, I can't see ever. I will have this disease for the rest of my life. And this disease will be sitting in the backseat of my truck doing push-ups and working out, trying to kill me. It wants me to relapse. It wants me to go back out there. It wants me to die all the time. You know, so I have to hone my skills. I have to always stay around people who are sober. I always have to stay around people who I believe who are in recovery and helping people in recovery because, you know, when I was out there, the only people I put myself around were bad people. People who drank, people who partied, people who wanted to see me hurt myself, wanted me to start a fight in a bar. I put myself around people that wanted to be entertained by me. You know, I'm not an entertainer anymore.
Right.
You know, I don't mind being mellow, having people help me up off the couch. It's really quite an easier life now.
Yeah.
Did that go back to the tools? I know they taught you some tools, and that sounds like you started making strategies around how to live your life. I mean, I feel like when your life is dominated by a substance, that impulsivity can really reign supreme in the sense of like, if you are in constant pain, you want to feel good. Right? Like, because if life is suffering and there's only these few moments that you're actually good, you know, you're always looking for that. So how did you start putting these strategies that you learned into effect? Like, what did that look like?
Well, I don't really know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
Because my body is still in pain. I think that with the program and with what they taught me, they taught me how to manage the pain. And all through my life, I've heard about pain management, but I've always been an alcoholic and an addict, so that was my pain management. Drinking a bottle of booze make pain go away.
Right.
So what I had to learn how to do was to, Tylenol PM. That works pretty good. Little arthritis medicine works pretty good. Add a little Advil and a Tylenol, works really good. And none of those drugs are addicting. None of those drugs do anything for alter your brain. Even those, you don't want to abuse those either. But I've learned that I didn't need a bottle of booze to get through the pain. The damage that I did to myself, and I have to deal with that. Even when I've been through 4 major surgeries since I've gotten out of injured recovery, since I've been out of recovery. And I did like the doctor said, and I took my medication like the doctor said on the hours when it's supposed to be done. And then when they issued me my second bottle of painkillers, I finished part of those, and then my wife was there to watch me throw the rest away and get rid of the rest. I didn't abuse those either. So part of that is just learning to cope with what you have sober.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sober is a much easier life than trying to drink on pills, trying to drown your pain from pills, trying to drown your pain from alcohol. Being sober, you got to live through. You got to live through everything. You got to feel everything. But I spent so many years not feeling anything. It's okay to cry. Yeah. It's okay to feel the pain that I'm feeling. And I don't live in like, oh my God, if I just would have done this, or oh my God, da da da. It's more like, okay, I did these things. That's why I'm feeling the pain. And, I lived a wild life, and now I have to suffer with the consequences of my wild life. And instead of feeling sorry for myself and thinking that, I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't do this, I just have to live the consequences. And if I look at it that way, then I'm not in so much, oh, poor me mode. I did it. I did it myself, but now I'm sober. So now I'll live with the consequences of the damage I did.
Right. It's almost like the art of letting go.
Oh yeah.
Being able to like kind of forgive yourself and like, yeah, and it happened, like, and not in a way that like you deny accountability. Like not pretend that it didn't happen, like you said, like drowning it out or like kind of band-aiding it up, but genuinely saying like, I did some bad things, and like there's nothing I can really do to go back and change those things. Like you make your amends, right? I know that's a step.
Yep,
is that
absolutely.
Fifth or fourth step?
It's fourth step.
Fourth step, right? Yeah, actually, yeah. Let's skip to there. What was that process like for you? I know that's something that always is kind of tough and kind of think scary for people want to get into recovery. Is that like, man, I'm gonna have to do some things I don't want to do,
Actually, I think the fourth step is taking a personal inventory of yourself, and then the fifth step is making amends. So for me, a lot of my amends were to people I didn't know. They were in bars, they were at people's parties, they were in California. So a lot of those were, I could say my prayers and ask God to forgive me for those. There's not any way I'm going to find all of these people to say sorry to them. Right. A lot of it was, and this gradually happened. I had to make amends to my daughter, because I wasn't part of her life. I had to make amends to my ex-girlfriend, my daughter's mom. I had to make amends to my ex-girlfriend. I had to make amends to people that I would make amends to my family. When you're sober, it seems like it's going to be hard, but it's not. Right. You have to do that. You can't keep any of that stuff in you. You have to be sober and feel it. And they say also that you're not making amends to make them forgive you. You're making amends to help forgive yourself. Yeah. You're making amends to so you can get through this. You know what I mean? Some people aren't going to forgive me for some of the stuff I did. For sure. Some people aren't ever going to want to talk to me after what stuff I did. Yeah. Some people probably beat me up if they saw me after the stuff I did. Right. But I make amends so that I can start healing myself. And if they don't want to forgive me, then I'm not going to blame them for that either. Yeah, I did the damage, and it's anybody's opportunity whether they want to forgive me or not forgive me.
I feel like that's the right kind of mindset to have, not being result oriented, because so much of life what we live in is we're trying to get to a certain goal, but the approach of making those amends, not having an expectation, I think gets rid of a lot of the anxiety associated like with an unknown outcome. Like, what are they going to say? And you're like, it doesn't matter because that's not why I'm doing it. I'm just going to take the action. I'm going to do what I can.
And because it's almost like the serenity prayer, like accepting the things you can't control. Because like, man, you can't control the response. So, like, as much as you really want them to forgive you, like they might just kind of like, yeah, man, like go eat grass, like like I'm good, And like that's all you can really do is like come from a place of genuine sincerity. It's like I'm taking accountability for what I did. I'm really sorry. It was pretty ugly, and like that's really all you can do. Like their reaction to that and their response is totally out of your control, So like, being able to kind of having the wisdom to know the difference,
Right. I would like to take complete credit for the way that I think now, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I think, the way I thought was I didn't care. I didn't care if you liked me, didn't like me, forgave me, didn't forgive me. I didn't care when I was in my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I think and the things that I do, the way I do things now are duly related to my higher power God, my family, and the book. The book and the people in the programs have taught me that. I've watched them. I watched their kindness. I've listened to their words. I've read the book. I've read the book twice now. And in that, I've learned that I have to be compassionate. I have to be these certain ways in order for my life to enjoy my life, not because oh, you have to be this way for a certain reason. I have to be this way because my life is enjoyable now like that.
Yeah.
It's my life is filled with compassion, filled with the people that I work with. I've made it to peer support. I'm working on my high school diploma. I'm doing things that I never ever thought. If you would have told me 19, 20 months ago that I was going to be sober and I was going to be helping people, I would have told you you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
I would have said you're out of your mind. Where's my bottle?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would have said. I've never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be able to be doing what I'm doing right now. And I have a passion for it because I feel sympathetic to people like me. I know what they're going through. I've been there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've been in the darkness with no light for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So what the way that I am now, I was taught that.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be open-minded, willing, all of those things in order to be the way that I am. It wasn't like it wasn't somebody saying you're going to be this way. It was something that you have to accept. You want to be that way. You have to accept that you want to be sober. You want a better life. We're not. They always say we're not the people that our addiction turned us into. We are who we are now in our sobriety. Right. That's who we were supposed to be. We've made ourselves a mess with all of our addictions and what we've done with the addiction. We've made a mess out of our life. That doesn't define us, though.
Yeah. Wow. Accepting all that almost shame of where you've been. That sounds like it's a lot to handle, like a lot to process. I imagine that wasn't something that you just kind of got one day, but it's been an ongoing thing.
It is, and it will be an ongoing thing for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell myself, because I partied and drank and did all that stuff for so long that if I can be sober for 10 years, that's a quarter of the time that I was wasting my life away.
Mm-hmm.
If I can be sober for 20, if I can live to be 20 more years older, that's only half of the time that I wasted my life away. So it's like I always say this, and I've heard it in the meetings, I've heard it before. I always say that if I go after my sobriety, like I went after that bottle of booze or those drugs, I will live a great life.
Yeah,
I will live a great life, and that's what I do. I go after my sobriety like it's like my life depends on it because it does. I have to stay sober. I don't have another drink in me. I don't have another get a bottle in me. I don't know what one drink is. I don't know how to drink one drink. Right. One drink to me is giving you a drink and me drinking the bottle. I don't know what one drink is.
Yeah, that's something we were talking about before we started recording too. That I think is really important for maybe people who are just maybe stumbling upon this and don't necessarily have like any firsthand experience with like that genetic component of alcoholism. That like it's kind of confusing, I think, for people when they're like, oh, well, why doesn't so-and-so just like, they realize they can't handle it. Why don't like they just stop, And it's like, it's not exactly that way, and it doesn't look always like, that stereotypical, I'm throwing air quotes up right now, but like the stereotypical like alcoholic where like, oh, so and so had a great job and they ran like themselves into the dirt, and then now they don't have their family anymore, and like they got their kids taken away. Like it doesn't always look like that. Some people can like function decently for a long time, but it's when they drink, like it's almost like a blackout rate. Like if your blackout rate is 99.9%, like it's kind of a sign, Like, and that's like people I think get confused sometimes between like what an alcoholic looks like if it's not in your family, you don't have a firsthand experience with it. So I think like that's kind of a important thing to hit on. There's like there is no shut off valve, like you said.
No.
Like there's like no casual drinking, there's no responsible drinking. Like it genetically, like it's just not an option. Like it literally does not exist. It doesn't happen, and it's like 0% chance. Like you start, like it's gonna be what? It's gonna be a rodeo a little bit going down the pipe there.
Well, I started when I was 11 or 12 years old, and I didn't stop till I was 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't it was, I drank all the time. It wasn't until like the last 10 years that I drank every day.
Yeah.
And when I introduced myself,
30 years of like not doing it every day. Like there's not a lot of people in your life, like except your immediate family, that's seeing you every day for 30 years.
Right. Right.
So like that's kind of exactly the point I'm hitting on. So I'm glad that kind of.
Yeah. And when I say back earlier when I said I drank that much whiskey in 2.5 hours, I didn't decide to drink that much whiskey in one night. It took 41 years to have that high of a tolerance.
Yeah. And to walk into the hospital, first of all,
walking.
Yeah.
Right. Walk in. It took that many years to make that high of a tolerance in my body. And your body's only going to be able to do that a couple times before things are going to start going really south. And I believe that everything that happened that day to get me into the hospital was all an act of God. I believe that the job that I'm doing now was an act of God. It wasn't me deciding to get sober. When they had to do an intense background check on me, and when I got that background check back, I had been arrested 30 times from the time I was 18 to the time I was 40-something years old. And I looked at those arrests, and they were just crazy. They were the wildest things. And when I looked at them, I was like, wow, I could have died there. Oh, I should have went to prison for 7 years there. Oh, I should have went to prison for 10 years there. Oh, I should have died there. Oh, this should have happened. It was like, I started crying when I read that police report, because at that point I had already applied for peer support. And I realized that God knew what I was going to do when I was 50 years old. He knew I was going to change my life. I didn't, but he did. And it was like a testimony to read that, see that. I was one step away from not being able to get this job, one step away from being in prison, one step away from dying. He knew that I was going to help people when I was 50 years old. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now with that sounds like your whole life has been kind of self-destructive. I mean, you said it yourself, you kind of want to die, and even that last story it reads like a suicide attempt. I mean, if you hadn't made it to the hospital, you probably wouldn't be with us right now. So like that, how with that long of a time of spent just hating yourself, how did you learn to love yourself again? I mean, do you even feel that, or is it more of like getting it from other people? Like, man, that blows my mind.
When I used to say, they say you can't love somebody without loving yourself first. So the way I used to get around with that is I would say, I love hurting myself. That was my motto. I loved hurting myself. So then I can love you because I still know how to love myself. I just love hurting myself. That's how I trick.
Pain is your love language.
Right. That's how I trick my being. But yeah, in the house they had to teach me how to love myself, how to not want to hurt myself
in the genuine way.
In the genuine way. And I once I realized I didn't want to die, and I wanted to be with my grandkids, and I wanted to be with my wife and family, and I wanted to be sober. All I had to do was learn tools how to do that. I had to learn how to start loving myself and loving people around me. Not a fake love. Not, oh, I love you when you're full of a bottle of booze. But a real love, real hugs. My grandkids, they were born when I was drinking. And I think my granddaughter has seen me fall down a couple times, but she didn't know I was drunk. And I don't ever want them to ever see me drunk. I don't ever want my family to ever see me drunk again. And I went with that. I went with, when I first got into recovery, I didn't have anything left in myself to want a better life. I didn't know how. I didn't have that left in me. But I knew that I wanted my grandkids and my daughters and my wives and my moms, all my friends and family to see me sober and then have fun sober. So it started out more like, I don't want them to be disappointed in me.
Right.
As the days went on, I was more like, okay, I want to do this. I want to be sober. I want to, so I needed my family's love to help push me in the door. Nobody told me to go to rehab. Nobody told me anything. I just did it. But at the beginning, I needed for me to think like, oh my gosh, this would be so incredible to not have to worry about driving drunk with my grandkids or make them excuse why I'm not driving, because I can't drive. I've been drinking. I don't want to drink. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was just a bunch of different things, and knowing that someday, this could really happen. And that happened little by little in the rehab I was in. Right. Little by little, I started making up stories and playing like pictures in my head of what it would really be like being sober and doing this sober. And it's just
almost like visualization.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to this day, I'd never been sober fishing. I'd never been sober skiing. I'd never been sober on a backpack trip. I'd never been sober. Just so many things that I've never been sober doing that I do now. And I love it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd never been sober camping. And, they had a camp bench or something almost 2 years ago when I went to it. I was like, wow, I woke up. Nobody's mad at me.
That's a good experience.
I don't have burns all over my body. Wow. People were like offering me breakfast that morning. I was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Before I'd wake up and half the camp would be moved. Half the people would hate me. People on the other side of the campsite were like, that guy would shut up.
Because you're not there.
Yeah.
You're a long ways away.
Just the greatest experience are happening in my life now.
Oh, man. That's so crazy to think of it the opposite way, because as kids, we're always like, oh, what's the first time? You have all these first time type situations, but I've never thought of it in like, oh, the first time I experienced life in a genuine way and like got what I wanted out of it.
And I think that's the cool thing to mention, because it's the other side of that coin you mentioned earlier. We're like, man, I have to feel things now. Like,
right.
Yeah. I get to feel things now.
Yeah,
right. I get to.
You get both of those plays, man. Like, you get the full complexity of life, because it's no longer like a blur, or like
dulled,
or just not even dulled, or like obviously sometimes numbed, but just like that red running rage, dude. You know what I mean? Like when you're, I don't know, dude, at least in some experiences, like when you're drinking heavy and things are kind of blurring by and you're blacking out, like you might get some things, like you may remember some things, but not really a lot, and like you're just kind of blurring life by, like you don't really get the bad times, but man, you don't really fully get the good times either, man. Like you don't get a genuine appreciation for the complexity of life, like, and all of life that life is. And like, because I have a lot of those similar experiences, like, like, man, this kind of tears me up, because I used to like, go to family events, and things, and like, part of it is like, oh, you go to these family events and like people drink, and like that's a thing that you do, and then like you're embarrassed yourself in front of your family, and like now grandpa's pissed, and that's kind of weird, and now like I go back home and like I can totally sympathize with that aspect of like, man, people get to see me like be my best me, like, man, like we're doing cool things now. Like, like where I get to go home, people are like, hey man, what are you doing for work? I'm like, oh, swinging a hammer and drinking beer, like that's not it anymore, man. No. Like I get to do some pretty cool stuff day in and day out, and it's really because like, and the only reason I bring up that is because like, it's like you, like, I don't know, you just get to fully live and like feel life, for better and worse.
Absolutely.
Like. And it's a pretty beautiful experience, man. So like, I don't know, that just got me fired up.
Yeah. So I've lived an incredible life. I've done incredible things. I've had incredible jobs. I've lived in incredible places. I've lived on top of mountains. I don't dwell on it like, oh my gosh, I wish I was sober. But when I look back at it, I think about it. Wow, I would have learned twice. I would have learned 20 times as much if I was sober. I would have, my body wouldn't be in as bad a shape as it is now if I was sober. But the good part is that I can do the rest of my life, and that's the whole key.
Yeah,
is to dying sober.
You get to double down forward now.
I could die sober, and I still can be my crazy self. I just have to do it real slow. I have to do it real mellow, and I have to be like, hey, bro, why don't we jump off this curb? I can ask for help now. And I'm serious about that too. I look at a curb, on the street, and I'm like, okay, Where's there a sidewalk I can walk down? You know, I don't even want to step off a curb crazy anymore. You know, it's just
Oh
you know,
man,
it's a great feeling to remember that I lived a wild life. It's also a great feeling to remember that I can live the rest of my life sober.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, and that's an interesting perspective is that we see ourselves as like a whole life, right? We see our past, present, future, and we kind of think of it as a whole person. And yet we all experience only the present. Like the Tuba that I know is only the Tuba that's right in front of me.
Right.
And so for everyone else on earth at this moment, that is who you are.
Yeah.
So even though you have a past, for anything that you do in the future, it's a unique and original moment that would have gone so much differently if you had changed things back then. I mean, in the sense of, I guess your past doesn't define you, but
Right.
you're in your own timeline, so it's really hard not to do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Right. You know, and when I mentioned skiing, I was an avid skier. I loved skiing. You know, and last year, because I had so many surgeries, I didn't get to ski. So this year, that's why I just can't wait. I know probably don't want to hear this, but I can't wait for winter to get here. You know? Because even though I won't be able to ski the way that I used to ski, it'll be the first time ever that I skied sober. You know, ever. You know, just like when I'm fishing, the first time ever that I was sober. You know, even when I was fishing, maybe when I was a little kid, I was sober, but even towards the end, when my dad was, before he got sick, I was sneaking the beers. Me and my little cousins would get up in the middle of the night and sneak sips of the beer that were left on the tables, and so I was drinking back then too, you know. So it's like, yeah, you know, all the experiences I have to look forward to sober are just like, you know, like a little kid going to Disneyland, you know. I can't wait.
Sounds like a special Christmas almost. Like it's like that experience is a present that you can't wait to open up. You're like, I wonder how it's gonna be. I get to really get all of the feeling out of this.
You kind of get to recapture that innocence you didn't really get to have after your father passed. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people that go through like traumatic things, you know, and they're expected to be like, you know, things like that, you know, like the man of the house kind of thing, or like, you know, some of these archetypes that like we're kind of pressed into playing when we're really not ready. And you're like, man, I kind of just, it could be kind of cool if I could be a kid, you know, that'd be sweet. And now, like, obviously you're an adult and, like, you get to, but that's even the cool part because, like, you get your own car, you get freedom, you have your self-direction, and you still get to enjoy it with that innocence that you never got to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, like, it's one of the most beautiful things about recovery that I, like, love to see, like, all the time.
Yeah, and you know, you get to learn how to forgive yourself, too, because by leaving my mom and my little brother and my sister, you know, I damaged the relationship with my little brother. And I damaged the relationship with my sister. I should have been there to protect them and to protect my little brother and to help my mom and stuff. So those are some of the things that I will have to live with the rest of my life. But I've made amends with them and I've talked to them and I've asked for their forgiveness, you know. But, you know, when we do that to ourselves, we don't realize that we're hurting the people who love us the most, you know. And a lot of times we don't realize that till we're sober.
Yeah.
You know, we have to look back on that and we have to be like, okay. Yeah, you know, we're not just hurting ourselves. We're hurting other people that loved us, you know, for years.
Yeah.
You know?
It can be harder, too, like, in those moments of clarity when you do know that you're hurting those people, you know?
Oh, that's a good point.
You know, like, when you're kind of stuck in, like, because one that I actually think about quite often is, like, this guilt-shame cycle that people in their active addictions go through. Because there are those moments of clarity, at least in some experiences, where, like, man, you know you're doing bad things, but you're just not at that place, or you're not really like, you'll have whatever's missing. You're not quite at this space where you're like, man, but I need help to change, you know? So like those moments, like it's stuck in that guilt shame cycle. So if there are people who are listening now, like, you know, that are kind of like, man, this is me, you know, like I know at times that like I'm hurting people I love, you know, even then, like you kind of banded it up though, like you kind of can use again and band-aid that thing up and kind of just keep pressing forward until you forget about it again. Like you can break that cycle, man.
Absolutely.
Like dude, that can end. Like we can do it soon. We just have to
do it right now.
Yeah,
right now.
You
can stop right now. You just have to want it. You have to be able to wanting to live a different life. You know,
reach out for help.
And you can't beat yourself up over it. You can't be like, oh no, I've done other stuff. Nobody's gonna forgive me. Like my life is just gonna be this way. It's not true. Your life can change. Yeah. You just have to want it to change. You have to want it to change. You have to want it with your whole being, everything.
And I feel like some people might not even value themselves enough yet to want to change. Like if you hate yourself and want to die, you're not going to take steps that are going to bring you to the place where you can be healed. And so I encourage people to let go of the shame that comes with your experiences of your past and try to move towards a future that you want to have, because that's still possible.
Or even just taking that first step right now. And like at the end of this podcast, like we always do, we'll shout out the numbers. Obviously, we work very closely with Serenity House, so we'll shout out those numbers. We also have other podcasts for places like Cicada, and other people that help Freedom House, Love Inc., just to take that first step, get a foot in the door, even if it's not right now gung-ho, but in this moment, right now, if there's someone you can call, something you can do to not pick up now, it's an important first step. Just start making connections and get that foot in the door ASAP, like while you're thinking about it right now.
Absolutely. It's our God-given right to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we don't think we deserve to be happy, you do deserve to be happy. And you do deserve to be sober. And there is a good future out there for that. For anybody who doesn't think they deserve to be loved. You do deserve to be loved.
And you deserve to be understood.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of people don't feel understood. And that's the huge gap, is that no one's ever going to get me. And that's not true. And maybe no one has gotten you yet, but it is a possibility that someone can understand you and love you for who you are.
Yes. And this program shows that too, that a lot of people think, oh, nobody's like me. That you're wrong. There's a lot of people out there in our addictions that are sober that have gone through the same thing, that have, that can help people, let them know that they can love themselves. And there's a lot of people out there that will love you, So, I suggest you reach out to anybody you can, because it's your life. It's a battle out there. People are dying. They're dying. Kids are dying. People are dying from this disease on a regular in this town.
Yeah, and just real quick before I forget, if this is striking a chord with you and you're at this place, just in this moment, just right now, this moment may not last, the next couple days or whatever, but the number for the intake office is 907-714-4521. Even if you just call and make that connection, put that number in your phone, write it down somewhere, and just have it around, and know that when you're there in that space, take it from Tuba's experience. They will meet you where you're at with compassion and care, and all those things that we've been talking about. A lot of the stories we talk, and a lot of the stories we hear, this process is similar. You get your foot in the door, make the connections, find a meeting. They'll meet you where you're at, and they will love you. And they will, over time. It doesn't sound like it now, and it doesn't feel like it now, but over time, they will help you learn to love yourself and
Absolutely.
Put yourself in these shoes, like that. All these 65 stories that we've shared so far, where a lot of these people are at. This community is a special community when it comes to recovery community, because they're very connected, very loving, very supportive group of individuals.
It absolutely is.
One more time, that number is 907-714-4521. Is there anything else we wanted to hit on?
I just want to say thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to reach out to my community and try to give back a little bit that was so freely given to me.
And actually, yeah, if you make that call right now, you can go see Tuba, because he's at the peer support.
Absolutely. Come and see me.
These are guys that would love to love you and help you love yourself. This was Untitled Chapter.